And on a writing, on a grammar SAT, everything is scientific. And if you don't obey the scientific rules of writing a paper, a research paper, you're going to be wronged. Okay, so you can't really use enchanted or very fun or super clean. What you can use instead is spotless or intriguing or enticing. You don't really have to fill in the blank, but you have to cross out what aren't correct. You have to POE. Okay, so this, you have to cross out these words in order to circle down these. All right, that is essentially why there's something called shorter is better, because firstly, you can see if I only assess these 4 answers without ever considering the context, I'd know that the baguette plant couldn't be visited by pollinators. So the lack of pollinators meant they. So the lack of pollinators, you can see that it is a bit disconnected. It's a bit unnecessarily repetitive. Okay, so you can't really use this word. So it's a bit too long, essentially. And B, you can see that being that they were unable to be visited by pollinators, the baguette plants, therefore, and being that, it's very convoluted, it's very complex, it's very unnecessarily repetitive, because that's why the sentence is so long. And that's why you should almost always choose the 2 shortest answers to cross them out to do the process of elimination. And that leaves us with only 2 things, C and D. And you, instead of just reading through A, B, C, D, you can just look through C and D and see that, well, C is not really making sense, so I'm going to choose D, right? That is one better way to do it, instead of just reading through from top to bottom. Okay. Have you guys got that down? On the SAT, that is what one of the things that are very special on the SAT is that thing. It's the shorter is better. That's almost always true. I say almost because you can't rely on tips to be correct 100%. If you're aiming for a 1500 plus, you have to use both tips and your not innate, is your ability to distinguish from what they're tricking you and distinguish from the easy ones, the easy answers. Especially on the digital SAT, fun fact, the digital SAT will be sorted from easiest to hardest, okay? It will be sorted from, for example, they are testing you on commas, punctuation. They will have a set of 10 consecutive questions that follow that one same topic, and they will sort it from easiest to hardest. And the next one is also like, for example, word in context. Like, for example, you can choose 1 word out of 3 synonyms and choose the best one out of the 4. That they can also have like 5 in a test, and then they will sort it from easiest to hardest. So you can easily figure out what is the hardest by looking at the number of question. Okay. But first of all, I would like to remind you that this is a compilation, because wait, hang on a second. I will have to remind you this before I forget. This is a compilation, okay? This is a compilation which I have sent on Google Classroom, and you guys should have this bookmarked, either bookmarked or save it on your drive, on your computer, or the best way yet, to print them out, to print this compilation out, because every time that I ask for, let's see, every time that I ask for homework, for example, I say that you would have to do March International, everything except the 1st, the 11th, the 21st, the 33rd, the 44th questions, do everything except those questions. You would know that I'm talking about the compilation package, the compilation book, okay? So next time I would note, because we only have 1 year, which is 2022 and 2021 for reading and writing. So I'm just saying March International, but next time I would say that which year would you have to do it? So you're gonna have to find those year or those months, either international or US in the compilation. Okay, everything I say, if without context, it will be in the compilation because I took time to compile all of it. So most likely going to be using it, right? Okay, so this is the table of content. On the reading and writing section, there are tables of contents, but on the math section, I got a bit carried away and I forgot to add a table of content. I might add it later, but you should know that I sort them from US to international, from the lowest month to the highest month. All right. So that's how you can easily navigate through the compilation book. But the easiest and the best way for me to suggest to you is to print them out. Please, guys, just to print them out. If I have taught like several Americans, and most of them don't really have a printer. And if they don't have printer, they wouldn't be able to. The printing shop in America is not as popular in Vietnam. So, do you have a printer at home?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, so that's a good thing. You can just print them these books out, so it will be easier to keep track of instead of just asking me to scroll them down. Okay. So next time, I would suggest you guys, all of you, to print out these books. It'll be a bit easier and a bit more focused. Okay, it's not like mandatory. It's just a suggestion. If you want to do anything, that's fine by me. And okay, so back to the grammar information. So where are we? You got it. The grammar section is basically scientific. So almost always you're going to have to use the shortest available or the most concise, but still correct. Yeah, they have to be correct. If you strip out any information and you call it concise, it wouldn't be correct. It's just short. It's not concise. Okay, concise means that you have enough information, required information, but still keep it short. But if you don't have enough information, that wouldn't be concise. All right. Next up is a bit of parallelism. This is quite an odd definition, a new one, not an odd, but a new one. Parallelism. Parallelism. Parallelism is essentially a way of saying that every single thing in a sentence that followed that in a list, that is in a list or within I'll show you what I mean. Okay, firstly, we have two things to take to take a pin. Okay, to pin these two things. Firstly is and, the word and. And secondly is the lists. You have to pin this two on the top of the page, and then we'll work from here. Got it? Got these in mind? And next up is when you have an and, you're most likely to have two elements, right? The first element and the second element. And these two have to follow one rule. When it comes to and, I'm not talking about the other rules, but when you apply and in a sentence or and in between two words, you're going to have to strictly obey one rule, which is they have to be in one form. For example, if they're nouns, so be they nouns. If they're verb, they are verbs. If they are adjective, they are adjectives. Okay. There's no other way around. You can't just use word like noun and verb, an adjective, a noun, and anything like that. This is incorrect. Okay. You have to keep it parallel to each other. That's called parallelism. And in nouns, in adjective, that is a bit easy, right? But when it comes to verbs, there's so many things to talk about verbs. Verbs, you have tenses and you have subject, agreement, verbs, and you have forms of verbs. Firstly, it's the same. When it comes to verb, if a verb is a gerund. A gerund. Tom, can you remind me of what gerund is in a verb? Don't smile, just answer it.
I
Okay.
think that was like and the words that the I don't know what to say.
So can you give me an example, just one example of a gerund?
Like the word like.
Like. That's
Like doing something.
no, it's something follow. When you use the word like doing something, right? Doing something.
Yes.
What do you think is the gerund, like or doing?
Like. Yeah.
Not really. Gerund is a verb ing form. Okay. Then can you remind me if what is a verb ing? Can you consider verb ing as a noun?
When is
Quick question, is a verb ing a noun?
is a modifier, for example. Like
Okay, it is not really a modifier. It's sometimes it's the initiating part of the modifier, which means sometimes it's a beginning, but it's not really the modifier. The modifier is actually the entire phrase in front of the comma. So is verb ing a noun? What do you think? When I say this, let's turn this to black. Running is good for you. Okay. So running, what is running in this sentence?
a noun.
Is it a subject or verb?
A subject.
Subject, exactly. And what is the verb in this sentence? Is, exactly. All right. This is a verb. Okay. So if in a sentence there's one verb already, can this be also a verb? No, it can't, right? So this is basically a noun. So a gerund from now on, everyone, remember this, a gerund is a noun. And what is a gerund? Is the verb with the ing after it. Verb ing, verbing. It's the gerund. Gerund is a noun, okay? Thank you, Tam. And what if I have this one? Is running. He's running. Okay. If I say gerund is a noun, then what is running in this case? Can anyone tell me? If gerund is a noun, okay, so if I have subject already, if a sentence that doesn't have a verb yet, it wouldn't be a sentence, right? So this is a sentence. What is making sense right now? It doesn't make sense because I told you that verb ing is a noun. And in this case, the only verb I can see up is running, and it is a noun. Then is this sentence correct? Can anyone tell me? He is running. Is this sentence correct? Any ideas?
It's correct.
Why is it correct? Because I'm seeing that this is a gerund, isn't it? Then where's the verb? Where's the verb in this case?
In this case, running is also a verb.
Running is also a verb. So you're saying this is an exception? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay, let's see. If this is an exception and if this is in fact a verb, then well, let's see. No, it wouldn't really make sense because I can see another verb right here. Can anyone tell me what is the one verb I'm talking about? There's one other verb.
Yes.
Is, right? What is that kind of verb?
To be verb.
Yes, it's a to be verb. This is a verb.
Oh,
In this case,
get-
is
I
a
get it.
verb. Okay. So running, is it a verb?
It's a state that is in.
Okay, is running a verb?
No.
No, it's a noun, right? A noun. A noun that is followed directly by a to be verb. For example, he is a fridge. No, that doesn't make sense. It is a fridge, okay? It is a fridge. See, this is a noun and this is a to be verb. And this is basically the same. But we are so familiar with the fact that is running is a verb that we forgot what it actually is. So recap is when it comes to present continuous or any tense, continuous tense, the gerund never is a verb, okay? For example, because take this in mind. A gerund never is a verb. So when you turn a sentence into a passive voice, for example, he ran, he's running. He is running the bus. He's driving the bus. I would use the black ink. Okay. He is driving. Excuse me. This driving the bus. When you turn this into a passive voice, what do? You turn it into the bus is being driven by him. See? The passive voice is essentially turn a verb into be plus past participle. Okay, so this is why English is very logical, because driving is not a verb. Have you ever seen driving being turned into another phrase, another kind? Because this is the basic formula. Verb is being turned into be plus past participle. So for example, I have jump. In passive voice, it will become be jumped, right? If jump is a verb, it will be turned into be jumped. So is are jumped. But have you ever seen, if I say is running, and it be turned into be run? Has it ever turned into that? Never, because the form of passive voice in this case, or in the continuous tenses, will become being run, right? Or for example, is being run. In this case, is being driven. So you see, this is the verb that is being changed. This is the verb. And this is the verb being changed. And everything, every time, the passive voice, or the passive voice is when it comes to present continuous, present simple, and or everything else. To be is the major one that's being changed. Okay, take that in mind. Let's see, is being driven by him. Yeah, that's the correct sentence. If you want to be more specific, because I can see that there are many loopholes in passive voice, because passive voice is very a shadowy region of grammar. That's why, okay, one fact, if you ever see a passive voice on the SAT, they are most likely to be wrong. So take that in mind. And every time you see a passive voice, you will cross them out because passive voice is grammatically convoluted. It's very complex. Okay. So every time you see a passive voice appear on the SAT, you would consider it with a grain of salt. Okay, so this is a kind of easier way to understand this. Let's see, the continuous tense. Continuous tense is basically, let me scrub that paper up and I will give you a different example because I can see the very many example that's being, there are very many exceptions for the passive voice. In a continuous tense, you can see that the form is be plus gerund. And if you, in a tense, if you turn it into past, you will turn it into past, right? Or turn it future, you will add a will in front of it. In this case, if a continuous tense be turned into a past, it will become was gerund. And if it's turned into a future, it will become will be plus gerund. You can see that gerund is essentially unchanged. And this is the most apparent reason why be is the verb and not the gerund, because gerund is almost always to be a noun. In grammar and in any scientific paper, there will always be an exception. So the word almost is very common in this field. Okay. So next, let's head back to the parallelism. Okay. Take that in mind again, that gerund never is a verb. It always is a noun. Gerund is basically like a fridge, a plane, an airport, everything like that. Gerund is a noun. And based upon that principle, you will see that the SAT will test you on that. Next up is if you have a verb here, okay, back to parallelism. You have a verb that is a gerund, okay? If I say running, and I say is run, and I say swear. Is this correct? Is this one correct? Okay, let's see. Parallelism is applied to two cases. Firstly is and secondly is a list. Let's see if this is a list. Running is run and swam. It's being listed out, so this is exactly a list. And because it is a list, you have to ensure that they stay the same structurally and formally. So if they have the verb ing or the gerund, they will always, everything will be in verb ing, not is run, not swam, not anything. And if this is she is pretty, and I say jumped, and I say finished, this would be correct. She's pretty, she's jumped, she's finished. Wait, jumped is actually an adjective. So actually these are, okay, this is not really a very convincing example because these are all, and they can always be adjectives. Let's see. You know what I mean. You can't say she is a fridge. It can always. Okay, so this is a different scenario, which we will go back to it. But you get this. Parallelism is being ensured in every single time you have a list and an end, okay? And the next scenario, the one and only exception I would give to you is I've just given it, okay? So if you understand this, I will jump into the next example. And let me recap it a bit because it can sound a bit complicated, but in fact, it's not, okay? Firstly, parallelism is an act of ensuring every single word being listed in a list or an end, it stays in the same form. Noun and noun, verb, adjective, verb ing, verb in the past, and verb in the past. They will almost never be verb in the present and the past, future in the past. They have to stay in unison. Okay. That's basically it. So we are going to jump into the only exception that the SAT will test. That is when there's a word in front of the list, like is. This is not a parallelism anymore, but is a carry on. If I say she is a woman, let's erase this. A woman, pretty, teacher. Is this correct? When a woman is a noun, pretty is an adjective, and teacher is also a noun. Is this correct? This is an exception, so it's likely to be correct, but why do you think it's correct? This is the carry on. Why do you think this is correct? In this case, is a woman pretty teacher is still correct. And why is it? What do you guys think? Just give out your thoughts. Let's see if it's correct. Why she is a woman pretty teacher, noun, adjective, noun, and it's still correct. Is it not a parallel? They aren't parallel to each other. But why is it correct though? And what is it named the carry on? What, the carry over? Sorry. Carry over. Okay, let me answer it for myself. Is a woman, in this case, there's one feature of a list that's very important to know, is that when you put a list, a verb in front of a list, it will be carried on for every element inside of that list. For example, is a verb, so it's carry on. She is a woman, and it will be carry on like this, carry over like this. She is pretty. It will also be carried over like this. She is a teacher. I'm sorry. So, but nobody uses like this, and it will most likely to be very complex, and it is wrong in a sense of being coherent or being understandable. But grammatically, this is a carryover. Okay. On the SAT, it won't be this example. It will be much more tricky, much more complicated. So you have to be careful. You have to understand it from the simplest of examples to the most difficult kind of questions the College Board might give to you. Carry over. Basically, if you put a word in front of a list, it will be carried over to every single element in that list. She is a woman. She's pretty. She's a teacher. For example, he worked in a shop, a hotel, a school. See, this is also being carried over. Worked in a shop, and in this case, the preposition is also being carried over. Worked in a hotel and also worked in a school. This is what they call a carryover, because they carry over to every single element in that respect. Okay, so if you see a list and you see a verb in front of it, to make sure if this list is correct, you're just gonna have to carry over to every single element. And if you see that he worked in a shop, he worked in a hotel, and if I say he worked in pretty, it would not be correct. Okay, so take that in mind, because he worked in pretty is not really correct. All right, that's basically it for today. Oh, and also I want to quickly remind you of something called subject-verb agreement. Subject, verb agreement. So everybody knows this. But I want to ensure that you guys remember this, because on the SAT, if this question is to be wrong, or if this is one of the 3 questions that you got wrong, it will be very regretful. Okay. So firstly, if I say plural, just remember, if plural is like many people, right? Plural is like a person, and it becomes persons. See, this is a plural, and it can also be people. By the way, they are also plural, and once it is plural, the verb will be singular. Okay. Singular, I mean it won't have the s after it. I don't mean that it will be is instead of are. Okay, if this is a plural, it will be in a to be verb, it will be are, and in a normal verb, it will not have an s after it. And if it is singular, it will always have s after it, of course, except for some irregular verbs. But it won't be too tricky on the SAT, so don't worry about it. Okay, that's just it. Subject-verb agreement. I really hate to have it carry this topic carried over to the next session, so I'm just going to teach you all today. So it's very simple. Subject-verb, you have to ensure that when I say it's subject-verb agreement, I mean that you have to check it if it's plural or it is singular, so that you can conclude that it's are or is or verb s or verb es or verb normal, verb infinitive. Okay, that's it. That's very basic knowledge of English, but you have to take this in mind so that you won't get it wrong when you see it, you encounter it on the SAT. All right. Let's give you guys a minute to sort them out to see if you have any questions, and we will jump back to the homework, because remember guys, we are almost finished on the writing section on a newer knowledge. We're going to head toward the revision, and it will be a bit more difficult than learning new things, won't it? Okay, I will jump to a homework. When I say int it is international. Okay, when I say US, it's in the US, it's US. Int is short abbreviation for international. Right, we will head to our today's homework and today's test. First of all, the second question is a bit tricky already, because basically it is asking about supports the idea in the previous sentence. Normally, this question I wouldn't put for you as homework because it wouldn't relate to our digital SAT. But in this case, previous sentence, not the previous paragraph, right? So it is applicable to our lessons. Let me turn on my notes a bit. Hang on a sec. All right. The second question, let's see, the previous sentence. When the question is asking the prompt is asking for a previous sentence. You have to make sure that you know what the previous sentence is. Never skip them. In Oxford's view, early 21st century architectural design was stubbornly rooted in the design principles of the industrial era. And something. So let's see. First off, assembled with discrete mass-produced interchangeable parts, most structures were built like machines. Having studied biology, computational design, and architecture, Oxman approached architectural design with a uniquely interdisciplinary perspective. Oxman spent her time studying natural structural systems like bone, wood, feather, shells, and nests, and was impressed by their innate beauty. Or D, collaboration with nature was fundamental to Oxman's concept of material ecology. Let's start this off with Lina. Can you do this second question, please? Okay, why did you choose A?
The given sentence is the given sentence plus the previous sentence, and I also read other ideas, and I think that is there is a necessary for the previous idea.
Okay, so the previous idea it's being said by, say, is a industrial era, right? And B, what is it talking about? Is it talking about industrial era?
No.
No, it doesn't, right? What is it talking about? It's talking about Oxman. It doesn't talk about the architectural design. And the C is also talking about Oxman, and the D is talking about Oxman. In this case, Oxman's concept. So we can easily see that B, C, and D, they're very much incorrect, and A is the only correct answer. Very good. Next up is An. Can you do it? The third question. B. Okay, B, let's see. In nature, exactly. Nature is a place, so B, 3B. Very simple. The fourth question, can you do it, Can you do the fourth question for me?
I choose A. A.
Okay, A. Let's see. By utilizing new 3D printing technologies, Oxman argued designers could begin to grow or fabricate structures from seamless multifunctional materials that would be both integrated. For you chose A. All right, A is into and responsive to, or integrated on. On is pretty much wrong. Integrated into is the only. Integrated for is wrong. Integrated by is also wrong. So take that in mind. 4 is A, correct. Let's see the fifth one. Okay, this is a very interesting one. Can you do it at home?
5D.
5D. Okay, let's see. This is why I like so much to teach homework rather than teach new knowledge out of the blue, because look, we've encountered a new knowledge. This is talking about supporting. Basically, it's a modifier, but in this case, it's talking about titles or names. Titles or name in a modifier. Modifier. What? Okay. So when I say, I'm sure people in the last class have already gotten bored of me taking Taylor Swift as a famous singer's example. I'm going to mention it anyway. Taylor Swift. Okay. If I say Taylor Swift, a famous singer, songwriter, is having a tour in Singapore. If I say this is what a modifier is, right? Because it's placed in between two commas. And in this case, I can basically, if a modifier appears in the middle of a sentence, I can just cross them out because I'm looking for a verb right now, and I can't see Taylor Swift, a famous singer-songwriter, is a verb yet. So I'm going to cross them out so that I can look at it more easily. So I say Taylor Swift is having a tour in Singapore. Why can I cross them out? Cross this out because it's unnecessary, and it's not really. I don't really need the sentence to know who Taylor Swift is. But in this case, what if this case? A famous singer, songwriter, comma, Taylor Swift is having a tour in Singapore. Okay. Hung, what do you think? Can I cross this out?
No,
I'm sorry.
you mean Taylor Swift, right? You can't
Yes,
cross that.
I can't cross that. Why do you think is that?
Because Taylor Swift is the main thing you're talking about.
Okay, Taylor Swift is the main thing. Or if I cross out Taylor Swift, do you know who the famous singer-songwriter is?
No.
So this is what we call an essential. And this is a non-essential. Okay. As for the non-essential part, I can cross them out because I don't really need it. It's not essential for me to understand who Taylor Swift is. But in this case, if Taylor Swift is in this comma, and if I cross Taylor Swift out, I wouldn't know who the famous singer-songwriter is having a tour in Singapore, who she is, who he is, right? So I would be so confused. That's why this is an essential clause, because it defines, it gives me the context. Okay. And one thing about an essential clause, you can't really cross them out. So can you really put them in between two commas? You can't, because if you put something in between commas, basically you're bracketing them. You put them in brackets, so that it wouldn't be necessary. That's what the comma in the middle of a sentence is for. And by having commas surrounding the essential clause, you will most likely eliminate them because it's becoming a non-essential clause. That's why you never put a commas between essential clause. So if I say that tour guy Robert is having fun. Okay. If I say this, is this correct, Hung? What do you think?
Yes, it's correct.
And so I can just cross this out, can I?
Yes.
No, I really can't, because that tour guide, I can't really know who they are unless I'm pointing at it. But if I just not pointing, I just say that tour guide, or I just say their tour guide to be more specific. If I say their tour guide is having fun, do I know who the tour guide is? Do I know who it is? No, I don't know. Okay, so Robert is basically an essential clause. So this is not correct because I can't use commas in between Robert. Okay, so recap, if something, for example, the king of UK, Charles is not happy. See, this, in this case, I can just cross Charles out because I'm saying the king of UK. There's just one king. There's just one king in the UK. So if I'm saying the king of UK, this will become a non-essential clause. Right? That's why I can put the commas in between, because by default, if you put a comma in between anything, they'll be crossed out. That's it. So in this case, if I say Simon Schleicher, if I cross out an architectural designer at the University of Stuttgart, yeah, that's how they pronounce it in Germany. Yeah, of Stuttgart. Do I know who Simon Schleicher is? Hung, do you think I know who he is?
Yes, it would make sense.
It would still make sense because
Yeah.
that is a name, right? Because it is a name. A name, so I can easily identify who he is. That's why I don't need an architectural designer at the University of Stuttgart anymore, right? So that's why this is a non-essential clause, and that's why B is incorrect, because this is a non-essential clause. B is turning an architectural designer at the University of Stuttgart into an essential clause, which in this case isn't, so it's incorrect. Okay, the next one is 6. Can you do it, Lena?
6A.
What did you say?
I choose A.
A, okay. Let's see. Followed Oxman's biometric approach in solving a particular engineering challenge, designing shading system for irregularly shaped glass paneled skyscraper. Yes, B. Why is B incorrect? Why is B incorrect?
B.
Do you see what's special about this?
Before the semicolons, it should be a clause.
Yes, exactly. It always has to be a clause. You remembered it, but after, not before. Okay.
After.
After, you can see a semicolon is the equivalent of what? Is equal to what what punctuation? A semicolon is equal to what punctuation finishes the sentence and start a new one? Was it? Basically, the semicolon is ending a sentence and starting a new one. That's why after it has to be a complete clause. And by ending a sentence and starting a new sentence, it's serving the purpose of what very, very common, very familiar punctuation. What do you think that is?
The dot.
Yes, the dot or the period. Yes, this one. So the dot or the period, it ends or finishes a sentence and starts a new one. And after and before, they have to be two complete and independent clauses, right? So that's why B is incorrect. And C is incorrect because you can't really split designing and shading in two parts. So C is incorrect and D is also incorrect. Great job. All right, 7. This is very familiar. Can you identify what kind of question this is, An? What is this?
A sentence.
No, it's not a sentence. It's, what is it? This is a
It's
comma.
It's a modifier.
Exactly. So this is a modifier. So recognizing the insufficiency of this, who can recognize the insufficiency? Schleicher, the elastic movement, or the elastic movement of plants, or Schleicher's design? Who can?
Slicer's designs.
Can Schleicher's design recognize the insufficiency? Can it
No.
recognize? No, it can't, right?
Slicer.
Exactly. So you choose
B.
exactly. A modifier, if you know and if you recognize what that is, it's very simple. You just have to know if a question is asking about a modifier. Okay, next one. It's going smooth today. It's going to be effective. Wait, do I think you guys have to do this? Did I give out this as homework? Let's see. Oh, I did give this as a homework, but you know, it wouldn't be necessary because this is talking about a previous paragraph. Okay, how about the 9th question? Dom, can you do it for me?
I choose C.
What's this kind of question? What is it talking about?
Like you choose the phrase that best fit the paragraph. Like
So it's the formality,
yeah.
right? Can you choose this cooking up fresh stuff?
No, it's too informal.
Exactly, fresh stuff. You can't really say stuff in a scientific sentence. So B is incorrect. How about A? I think A is very formal. How do you think?
But it's too like way too formal for.
Yes, it's way too complex, way too formal. So it's not correct. It's saying the conceit of a fancy. It's basically saying, but she is trying new things. So A is incorrect. It is too artsy. It's not correct. How about D?
Like the meaning of it.
Do you think
I
it's
don't know.
formal or informal?
Informal.
Yes, exactly. It's following her hunches is meaning like if she feel like it, if she feels like it, is basically it. So D is incorrect and C is the only answer. If you don't know what D is, just choose C because it sounds the best, okay? Because most likely if you don't know what it is, it wouldn't be too scientific because scientific papers would be to be accessible to many people. So it uses familiar words, for example, developing new ideas. Good job. The 10th question. Let's see, why did I circle it? Her recent projects include a 3D printed garment designed for. Okay, 10, can you do this for me? Hung, can you do it?
Then D,
Why is it?
because it's the briefest.
Exactly, shorter is better, right? Very good. 10D. Next one is the 12th question. I want Lina to answer this question. How do you think this is?
I choose D.
D, let's see. I just need to capitalize it. Oh, okay, delete the underlined. So let's reread it. Universally celebrated for containing one of the most important art collections in the world. The Metropolitan Museum of Art is world famous for its vast collection of undisputed masterpieces, but at its newest gallery, the Met Brewer, an exhibition features works of art beginning with this in spite of great. Let's see. How about B? What do you think about B? Why did you not choose B? What do you think this sentence served the purpose of? Do you think this is the first sentence or the last sentence? Is it first sentence?
Yes.
So this is a topic sentence. Okay, if I say this is topic sentence, let's see. If it is a topic sentence, it will either have to kickstart a new idea, or it will have to be a continuation. Okay, it will have to be the continuation of the last idea. So in this case, do you think I'm kicking start a new idea or continuing?
No.
This is the very first sentence of the passage. Do you think I'm kickstarting or continuing? It's very simple. What do you say?
Kickstart the new idea.
Yes, exactly, because this is the very first sentence. If you want to continue an idea, you're going to have to mention it from the aforementioned thing, okay? But it doesn't have anything yet because this is the very topic sentence. So a topic sentence, it will serve the purpose of kickstarting a new idea. It will have to summarize or will have to be relevant to the entire paragraph, okay? So what does this paragraph talk about? Does it talk about how this museum is containing one of the most important art collection in the world? Is it the spotlight of this paragraph? What's the spotlight of this paragraph?
About the incompletely complete art.
Can you repeat it? I think your audio is a bit low, so can you move it a bit closer to the mic?
Well, I think that the passage talks about the Metropolitan Museum of Art.
That is just a place. I think what you mentioned earlier, I just heard it briefly, but I didn't really. Did you mention something earlier? Did you mention something is incomplete? Lina? Did the connection just drop? Can you hear me, Lina? Hello. I don't think she can hear me. All right, so this is about an incomplete object. Okay, spending 5 cents is like this. This is not about okay, you're back. Did you say something about incomplete?
Yes.
Yes. So this is what this passage is about. It's about incomplete art. Look, this title, it says it for itself, right? Incomplete arts. But if you say that the very first sentence, universally celebrated for one of the most important art collection in the world, is not the main emphasis. And if you say premier location to view artworks. No, it's just to view incomplete artworks. It's the unique experience. It's not the premier place to view artworks because it's not streamlined. It's not everywhere. It's not streamlined. And B is also not correct because by greatest artists in the world, this is the emphasis. And this one is talking about incomplete art, incomplete. This is wrong emphasis. This is also wrong. So the only thing, A is also wrong. And the only thing is D. Okay. What you explained earlier is correct, but you're going to have to be firm on your decision. You don't need to be shy because what you think it might be correct, because I think that your performance on your homework is markedly good. So just be confident. And okay, the next one is 13. Information that follows in the paragraph. So when I say that when there's this sentence, Dan will answer this sentence for me, okay? So when there's this question, this prompt, I will have to refer to the latter part of the sentence, right? So I'm going to have to look after this sentence because this sentence will be the linking sentence between the first one, the before sentence or the before phrase, the before idea, and the latter idea. So this will connect this and this. So let's see what they are talking about after. In spite of the great variety, the artworks in the exhibit titled Unfinished, the thoughts left visible, a striking commonality, where they have been because the artists, they are incomplete. So what do you think the best fit answer for this one?
I think it's B.
It's B. Okay, what do you think it's B? What's the word that makes you choose B?
Inspired of.
Yes, in spite of the great variety. That means this word. Initially find inadequate. Inadequate means not enough. For example, I didn't have adequate eating today. That means that I haven't eaten enough today. That's what inadequate means, okay? So some visitor might initially find it inadequate because in spite of the great variety, everything is incomplete. All right. The 14th question. This is very simple. I'd say some of the works was left unfinished, was left. Oh, no. This is a bit more tricky than that. How do you think this is, Anne?
You tell me, you send me.
The 14th question.
C.
B. You chose B?
C.
Okay, C. Okay. Why is it C?
Because some works, like it matches with where.
Exactly. I had just been fooled because this one, Rubens Henry at the Battle of Ivory, this is just one artwork, but this is such as, and this is within a modifier, and this is within 2 commas. So this is non-essential. I can just cross them out, and was is the supporting, is the verb of works. So works is a plural, therefore this is were. Very good. Take this in mind, okay? Because you will most likely to make mistakes on this one if you don't careful enough, don't pay enough attention to this, because these are the questions will make you lose the most points on the SAT, especially on the digital one, because if you make mistakes on questions, such questions like this, you will be subtracted more than just 10 points, okay? Instead of making mistakes like this, you can just make mistakes like, for example, the 13th question or the 12th question, which are a bit more complicated. But the 14th question, you're going to have to pay extra attention to detail. So know that you can cross out certain elements. For example, in this one, I could cross this out so that I can read it a bit better. And this is how I approach historical passages on paper SAT. Because the historical passages, they are very, very complex. They have so many literary preference, just very wordy, to be honest. They have, a sentence is very long. A sentence, there are some cases a sentence can last an entire paragraph. That's how long a sentence is. That's why you have to perfect this art of crossing out unnecessary bits of information in a sentence, crossing out unnecessary clauses, crossing out non-essential parts, so that you can focus solely on the things that being asked, which is, in this case, some works and its verb, were. Okay, exactly. Next one is Rubens was living in Antwerp in 1628 when he began this. What do you think, Hung? What do you think this is? 15 and 16 for me. Can you?
Is A.
15 is ambitious work. Okay, ambitious work. How about 16?
16 is B.
Filled. Well filled, and C is very wrong. Yes, D. Okay, exactly. It's very simple. The 15th question is, you can't be enthusiastic work, can't also be industrious work, and you can't be determined work. I won't explain it any further because it's very apparent. Next one is 17. At its center. Okay, 17, can you do it for me, Lina? 17. 17 B.
D.
Let me remind you that this is something very important. If you see a verb, what is it?
D.
What is this one? If you choose D, then what is this one? We just learned about it. We just talked about it. If you have a comma and a verb in, what is it? Exactly, a modifier. Modifier. It's very complex. It's very tricky, right? Modify is very simple, but it can also be very tricky if you don't pay enough attention. You're going to have to try out every single questions, A, B, C, and D. And especially if you see semicolon or colon before gerund, for example, planning or any verb ing, it means that it is a modifier and they are trying to trick you on this. Although you can also put B because, well, you can put anything after a colon, right? As I taught you some periods, some sessions earlier, you can put anything after a colon. But what this is a very, very apparent, this is very distinct form of a modifier, and this is always a modifier. If you see a semicolon, a colon, or a period after or before a verb ing, that means that it is a modifier, and there's no way around it. Don't reason against it, okay? Because I did, and I did make a lot of mistake, and I tried to fix it as hard as I could, and it took a bit of time because this one modifier. I keep getting like the 790 for the 750 because of these kind of question. Okay, next one is the 18th question. It's quite simple. So 18, let's see. 3 years later, Rubens still had not decided which arm to remove when frustrated. Now exile queen. Okay, 18th B, because 3 years later, Rubens still had not decided. When you say 3 years later is a time, is a when, is an adverb, and Rubens still had not, this is the subject, still had not decided, this is the verb. When this is comma, frustrated, that this is the modifier because you can either put a verb ing or a verb ed, past participle. as the beginning of a modifier. Okay, so you can also cross this out. Wrong canvas size to make the payment. So in conclusion, you only have 3 years later, Ruben still had not decided which arm to remove. He abandoned the painting for good. 3 years later, Ruben still had not decided which arm to remove when he abandoned the painting forever. Yeah, that's precisely it. It doesn't create a run-on because remember, when, see, this is a when, and there's this whole chunk in the middle, and you have this, he abandoned. Don't be fooled by it, guys. It can, this is why you should always eliminate or just get rid of the non-essential parts. Next up is the 19th question. Let's see. 19th question, can you do it, Thumb? Adding or removing?
I choose B.
B. Let's see, why is it B? Because it provides information. The work features a painter turned away from her self-portrait in progress. Yeah, it's supporting this one because it's completing, it's describing, yes, details about the painting necessary to understand the main idea of the paragraph. This is very simple. You're just going to have to read the paragraph below. This is a very simple question. And next is 20. 20, what do you think, Anne?
A.
Okay, what is this kind of question? What is this asking about?
Which transition to use?
Exactly, transition. And by defining this is a transition question, you can see that either it has to be opposite, opposing each other, or supporting, or just neutral. Okay, in this case, they are supporting. So in other words, indeed is also viable. On the contrary, is not. In the final analysis, is not also, because this is a conclusion. It's not supporting, it's not even opposing. But A and B, let's see. The painting's incompleteness encourages viewers to imagine finishing the work themselves. In other words, mean that you reread what just said, but in just other words, just different way of saying the same thing, but different way of phrasing it. So it's not correct. The A is correct. Good. 22. Okay, this is very familiar. Can you do this time? Let's see. Lina, can you do it? 22.
22B.
22B, because why not C? Why can't I use C?
Since is similar to the given sentence.
To A, right?
Yes.
That's very smart, because look, A and C, they are basically the same. B, dashes and commas. Let's remind ourselves a bit. Dashes and commas are pretty much the same when they are placed in the middle of the sentence. And periods and semicolon, they're also the same. Okay, remind ourselves of that, and you can see that A and C, they're the same. There can't be two correct answers, so therefore A and C must be both wrong. B or D? Just B, because it is not parallel. If you open a comma, you're going to have to close it. If you open a comma, it leaves the sentence dangling. It's not really correct. So B. Next up is 23. 23 is very simple. It's just to complete the punctuation. 23C. Effectively combine. Can you do this for me, Hung?
Yes.
What did
Give
you
me 1
choose?
second, please.
Okay,
Give me 1 second, please.
all right.
C.
Let's see. Effective combined 24 species and from fossils of extinct one estimated the typical length of several. This, what do you think this question is? Effective, so you use what rule?
Shortest is better.
Not shortest, shorter.
Shorter is better. Yeah.
Because why is it? Because on the newer SAT, they knew people are using this rule, so they place a bit of trick. Is not only the shortest, but the shorter. The two shortest the two shortest answer will be the correct ones. Okay, so you're gonna have to choose between the two ones. So if you are quick, you're gonna have to cross out A and B, and you just need to look for C and D. Let's see. C, species and from fossils of extinct ones, estimated typical length of several. And D, species and from fossils, estimated the typical length of several extinct Mycetes species. You can see that there's a slight difference in C and D between A and B. A and B is repeating itself. Species fossils of several Mycetes species that are extinct were used by researchers to estimate. It's just lengthy and it's just unnecessary. And C and D, you can see that D, it has a bit more information, right? It talks about Mycetes species, but it doesn't serve any purpose if this has already been mentioned before in the sentence. Let's see, 34th question. The researchers collected length data for living Mycetes species and from fossils of extinct one estimated the typical length of several. So C, these species and from fossils estimated typical length of several extinct fossil of extinct ones. Oh, this C is not missing, it's misleading. Okay, C is not missing because I just got fooled by the two. Species and from fossils of extinct one estimated the typical length of several what? Several of the living one, perhaps. But on the D, it's a bit more clearer. Species and from fossils already mean extinct. Okay, it's very misleading. Did you get this? Fossil is already means extinction. You can't really have a fossil without thousands of millions of years in creation. You're gonna have to wait for longer than that. So fossils is already extinct. So C is very misleading, is very wrong. It's missing an information, but it's making this rendering this unnecessary. So although it's the shortest, but it's not the correct one. So D, okay, get it home.
Yeah.
Okay. 25. Which choice most accurately represent data? This will be quite a difficult one. Let's see. Tom, you'll be doing this. Let's read this first. The first known Mycetes species appeared around 30 million years ago and is estimated by researchers to be. So you just need what they are asking is about some million years ago. This is the only thing that you need to pay attention to. So pay attention to the time, the first appearance, okay? Let's have a look.
I
Okay.
choose, like, it's around,
25. Okay, I'm going to scroll up. What do you think? 30, 34, 40, 44.
I believe it's 34.
Let's see. You chose this point, right?
Yes.
This point extinct and Boom. Yes, is almost half, so it's 34. Exactly. The graph can be a bit tricky at first, but if you're familiar to it, you can do it in no time. The graph is undoubtedly one of the easiest part of the SAT, if you really know where to look. Which choice? Again, the graph. Can you do this one on? $26.
D.
Okay, let's see. To researchers' surprise, though, the data indicate that during this period, what's this period? This period is between 20 and 30 million years ago. 20 and 30 million years ago is this. So they are assessing the length, right? So most of them are like below 5, I believe. Below 5, yeah. Most of them are below 5. So let's see. Nearly half have missed this typical length of less than 5. Nearly half, no, they are more than half. C, the largest Mr. C had typical 12. No, it's just 6, about 6. Most Missetti species has had a typical length of less than 5. Yes, exactly. D. And there's abundant, no, not 6, less than 5. All right, let's see if there's any more important question to walk through. Okay, this is, we haven't, as you can see, that we haven't finished everything, but I'm going to mark it and give you the answer for the full test. In the meantime, I will only focus on the very important questions only. And my goal is to be able to finish entire test in one session without ever having to stumble or explain anything. So that is what we'll do, what my goal is in the next 1 or 2 weeks. Yeah, in the next, let's see. I will send you, I will remind you the next, because we are ending our first half of the month. Next Saturday will be our last session for this half, 1/4 of the course, which is this half of the month. And the next week we will begin our journey toward reading section, which is a very arduous part of the SAT. Yeah, on the 18th of July in Vietnam time, we will learn the first lesson on reading. So don't miss that. And on the 15th, which is on Saturday in Vietnam time also, we will be learning our last session for this first half of the SAT. And I will remind you this journey, this course. I'll share the screen. It's okay. This one. This is our schedule. So we have so far finished 1, 2, 3. The blue one. Let me just filter out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We just finished this session, and next session will be in March, and we'll have our homework due for March then, remember. And this is our stage. We are still in the first stage, and we are going to finish all maths knowledge. Grammar, punctuation, we've finished it, and in the next week we will focus on I think I will put more emphasis on math. I would change this to maths. Okay, a bit more maths. Okay, so this will be maths, and in the next 3 sessions I will try to finish everything maths related on the SAT, so that we can continue to review our SAT, and we will be prepared for the August SAT, which is on the 27th, on the 26th. Okay, all right. Again, reminder, in Sunday 8 a.m. there will be an examination. And we'll do it later, but in your time, your time zone, I will And is your time zone Eastern Standard Time?
It's Central.
It's
Standard Time.
Central. Okay, so I will set the timer for that for then, and it will be 8 a.m. in your time, Central Standard Time, and the rest will be in Vietnamese time, GMT +7. And on Sunday, 8 a.m., we will be having an entrance exam, the very first exam to see how you've remembered the lessons. And it's not really difficult if you have already learned most things. So just try to learn everything. And Saturday will be our last session for this half of the month. And I will send you the form for getting the password for the latter part of July later on Sunday, perhaps on Sunday or Monday. And I'll see you again soon. If you guys don't have any more question, of course, if you guys have any more question. Okay, if you don't, then I will dismiss the class now. All right, have a good one, you guys. See you again. Bye-bye.